Good evening. Welcome to Crossing the Line. We are here live on Facebook. We are also live on
Abundant Life Radio.
Abundant Life Radio, hopefully. And we are happy to be here. I know for the last couple of weeks we have been, doing little recordings here and there, but we are here tonight live and in living color.
Yes, good evening and welcome to another edition of Crossing the Line. As Roxanne said, we've been missing live, but not that we've been missing recorded because we've thrown in some recordings and have made some connections. But we are live, and just to prove to you that it's live, today is the 17th of August, 2023. So it means that I've just shot myself in the foot if ever we decide to use tonight as a recording on another night. But
Good
tonight
night. Good
we're
night.
happy to be here and just want to share with you quickly. We were on vacation for the past couple of weeks, and it's vacation that has been long time on coming.
Yep.
And we needed to get that. I have to do some adjustments. I can see the chat coming up. We needed to get that, and we know, like, we got some rest, we got some relaxation, we connected with family. It was all a family reunion, and we had a good time. One of the things that we have to start to do, we have to try to do, is see how best we can carry our what you call it on the road, our equipment
Yeah.
on the road and do
Just
some
a
good.
check-in.
Yes, we'll do that. Good night, Beverly. Good night, Simone. Eli. Good evening, and Cheryl. Eli, welcome. I'm glad to have you on board. You. I'm sure you will enjoy this program as a married man. All right, so tonight we want to kick off a discussion that that we have to go back to what the purpose of something is, to work out exactly where we're at. And when I say that, if I buy a vehicle, if I buy a car, I would notice that somewhere along the line, the dealer would tell me this and this and this is what you have to do with the car. And then they will give me a little booklet and say to me, well, this is how you have to function with this car. Likewise, as individuals, our body, if we have an ailment, we will go to the doctor. The doctor will say to us, listen, this is what we have to do. So, as you all know, our programs are always based on biblical principles. Our programs are always godly based. We believe in God, and we believe that God made man. So to go back to what the purpose of man was, we can only turn and look in scriptures. And I want to read from Genesis. Good evening, Shane. Welcome. I want to read from Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18. It says, then the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. Now out of the ground, the Lord had forbid every beast of the field and every bird of heaven, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that is what his name was. The bird gave names to all livestock. The man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, and while he slept, took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord made had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought him to her. Then the man said, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. And I will close my Bible at this point by establishing one thing that was established from the creation of Adam and Eve, that man was made for woman and woman was made for man, and they both become one flesh. So here we kick off our discussion.
I think even as I was researching and so on, I think the misconception that we have in terms of, because we're talking about, we're discussing whether or not the role of the man is diminishing in our society. And I think what happens sometimes, we have a misconception of what a man is in terms of what God had designed for a man to be. I think society thinks that a man is supposed to be domineering and telling a woman what to do and just totally controlling. But that was not in God's plan. Because as you mentioned, even as you spoke of Genesis, when God made Eve, he says, it is not good for man to be alone. So he made a helpmeet for him. You know, so it's not like a woman was ever a slave or a woman was ever to be like talked down to, abused or anything like that. And I think in some way that's where society got it wrong, in feeling that I have to fight to be on top of him, when that's not what it's supposed to be.
Yes, and I'm glad you highlighted that point, because you've laid in clear, the definition, the foundation of what our discussion is. Now, suffice to say, and I would even go to the point as to say, the very same Bible that I've read from have contained in it aspects of the Bible that supports the male dominated kind of society concept, supported the chauvinistic kind of concept. Now, one of the things that I want to share with us and let us understand is that in as much as the Bible is the Word of God, the Bible is written for certain dispensation, or the Bible was written for certain dispensation, the Bible was written for certain instructions, and the Bible is also a book that recorded events. So if I am to read something in the Bible that was recorded for my reference or for my knowledge, and I'm going to say, because it's written in the Bible, I should do X, Y, Z. No, I will be fooling myself. And sometimes I think, to justify our positions, we start to cherry pick different things and say, okay, well, oh, the Bible says the man is the head of the home. And as Roxanne said, and as we just read, if the Bible indicated in Genesis that I am going to make for the man a helpmeet, a helper, it means that they are co-equals and they're functioning in the same space together. And we often talk about it even at this medium, that myself and Roxanne has a very good synergy in that where I am weak, she is strong, and vice versa. So if we are to understand our individual roles, and if we're to function within our individual roles, I do not think there will have any need for any big furor as to who should be dominated and who should not be dominated. Now, bringing things to today's situation and in today's light, we were looking at and listening to some of the reviews from some of the movies that are coming out. Now, the biggest thing right now on the cards is the Barbie movie. And persons are talking about the Barbie movie. And one of the things that piqued my interest in the Barbie movie, I always listen to some of the extremists and hear what they're saying. So I heard some of the comments from some countries, like some countries that are strong in Islam and some countries that are very strong views about certain things. And I heard there are certain countries that banned the movie because of what it's promoting. They said it's promoting homosexuality, and they said it's also promoting. I'm trying to remember the other wording, but it's something along the line of the woman dominating. Now, when we look at the situation and I start to read some of the reviews. When we look at the situation, now we're moving from one extreme and we're going to the next. So it's a situation whereby we were in a situation whereby we're talking about a chauvinistic world in that a man is dominating. And now it's a situation whereby it's being spouted that a woman is supposed to be dominating. They said now there's another new movie coming out with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and Snow White. Is Snow White met Prince Charming? I can't remember.
Prince Charming?
Yeah, I can't remember them. Somebody they married to Prince Charming or somebody who they let down there is Goldilocks.
That's Goldilocks.
Anyway, whoever.
All of them having a prince in some aspect.
So the princes are disappearing in that they are painting the picture of a woman functioning on her own. So the question is, what are our roles as male and female? What are our roles as man and woman? Is it a situation whereby the man should dominate and leave it at that? The woman should dominate and leave it like that? What was God's design, and what is still God's design for us?
The thing is, like we always say, everything always need a balance.
Yes.
Because men dominating totally and, woman is like, you don't have a say, is wrong. And then the other way is wrong as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then how can we find a common ground where we are working together for the common good rather than this fighting against one another? Because even as we look back at the same Genesis and how God designed things to be, yes, he wants the man to be the leader. He designed it that way because that's how he designed it, in that the man would come to him for instructions to bring to the family.
Yes.
That is how it is. God, it is the man, it is the woman, and that is how he designed it in terms of getting direction, getting wisdom in order for the family to function. And if we are honest, if we function in the way he designed things to be, things go well. Because even if you look at Eve, when Eve sinned and ate the apple, God did not come and go to Eve to ask her, Eve, why did you do this? Even though she's the one that did it.
Yeah.
He still went to Adam.
Yes.
And inquired of him.
Mm-hmm.
So that is his order. He always functions in that order because that is how he designed it to be. Because like as James said, that is how it is in the manual. And that is how he knows it's supposed to work. And if we go outside of that, there's always a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we have in our society, and we can attest to that. Women are achievers. Women have climbed the highest rung of the ladder. Women have achieved quite a lot. And you now see a situation whereby a woman is working just as hard as a man. Now, and I mean, we can come back and we can throw to different things. We have spoken on this platform about our different roles and how we function at home. And at home, it's not all the cooking is left to you, all the cleaning is left to you, all the yard work is left to you, all the this is left to you, all the that is left to you. We both of us function in a way that we both complement each other. Because both of us have full-time jobs. In some cases, I work much more than Roxanne. In some cases, Roxanne work much more than me. Based on our season, based on our times, we're in the hospitality industry. and the building industry. And based on how the seasons function, one individual will have more work than the other. Communication is key. Once we establish that, we say, okay, well, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to. I would not come home after having uh, an easy day, knowing my wife had a hectic day, and come home and say, I'm waiting until she come home to see what's for dinner. I would then go ahead and start to prepare dinner. In some cases, a woman may think to, a man may think to himself, well, that is beneath me. I shouldn't have to do that. In some cases, a woman would say, but why am I coming home and preparing dinner when you're home all the time? No, no, that is your job, and you have this back and forth. When we have a situation whereby we function together in our defined roles, then we don't have that situation. So I think at times when a woman gets to the point whereby she starts to say, well, what is it that I need a man for, just for procreation? And even in some cases now, the man is not even needed for procreation, because a woman would go to a sperm bank, get something, and then she's on her merry way, because she has signed something to indicate, I don't necessarily have to know the father of the child. But is this God's design? Is this God's plan? Is this what was in the manual for us? And are we functioning in a society whereby we're saying the man's role is diminishing more and more, so we don't really need the man?
And even as you gave that analogy, when you spoke about a woman, obtaining a child on her own by a sperm bank, whatever it is, what about the child? What about the child? What is that child's need? Does that child not need a father in their life? Does that child not need a male figure in their life? I was looking at a story some years ago with that same scenario where a woman, she decided, I don't need a man, I'm a businesswoman, I can function on my own, I don't need him. And she went ahead and did that. And then the child grew up to despise her because of it. Because the child is saying, listen, I went through school, I missed so many things, father, daughter, dance, and so on, and, different things where I needed a father to be there with me. And you denied me of that just because you were saying, listen, this is my own selfish reason, basically. But even as we talk about this tonight, as we talk about if the men's role is diminishing, we think about even feminist movement. Would that, do you think that that has something to do with it as well?
Absolutely, because it's, if you look at, and again, we're going to go back to movies and the plot and so on. And as I said earlier, because of the fact that there's so much, there's so many professional working women. Now, I don't want anyone to get us wrong. In some cases, being a feminist is good. I think in some cases I'm a feminist. And because I would be one that would advocate for women, advocate on being advocate on women issues. The problem is when we go too much overboard. When we get to the point whereby we're preaching, oh, the woman and the woman and the woman and the woman, and you're making irrelevance of a man's role. Now, as we said and we read from scriptures, both of us need each other, because realistically, there cannot be an existence of a woman without a man, and there can be an existence of a man without a woman.
Yep.
Take that however you want to figure it out. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and even as we talk about even the role of men, I think men has to take some responsibility as well, because we find a lot of times that men are not stepping up in that role that they are supposed to be. Even as we look at, let's say, even from a spiritual point of view, you look around in the churches, and the men are missing. You try to get them out, and it's like there's just something about them that they don't want to step up, they don't want to be in that position, and they rather to sit back and not take on that responsibility.
Mm.
So in some cases, I think the onus is on men also to take up their rightful role, whether it's in the home, whether it's in society, not in terms of domineering, but being that leader that we as women can look up to and say, listen, I admire his leadership. I admire his leadership. He's not chauvinist. He's gentle in his leadership. He is compassionate. Let our society be a society of men who we as women can look up to and say, listen, I admire this man. Not only the person that lives with us, not only our husband, but men in our society. And I think a breakdown has taken place where that is concerned when you look around and you're seeing that, these men are not being that example that they ought to be and not functioning as they should. And it's like, I can't be bothered.
I think again it comes back to what are we passing on, because when we see what's going on in society and we're seeing what's going on with our young boys, it's what's being passed on. And you said something a bit earlier when you mentioned, when you spoke about a child not having the opportunity to grow up with the dad.
Mhm.
And similarly, you made mention of a young lady, but similarly with a young man. And one of the things that I try to instill in our two boys is consistently to show them the love, to show them that connection, make them know that, okay, well, I can come to you, I can approach you, I can talk to you, you can understand and know anything. So they can look and they can say, okay, well, I had a dad always in the home that I could take a look at and get an example of. The stepping up of the man is indeed key. The man needs to step up, and the man not only needs to step up, but he needs to step up and also be a father figure to his sons.
Yep, because the boys need mentors. But if you are not in that place that you ought to be, you are not able to mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not being that man that you are supposed to be, a godly man, a good father, a good husband, you are not able to pass that on to the next generation. So when we have this decline in our generation in terms of how we function, as how men function or ought to function,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just trickles down. It
Mm.
just trickles down. How is a boy to know how he's supposed to function as a man and treat a woman, how he's supposed to be in the society? It has a lot to do with what is passed down from the man in his life.
What he sees his father
Yeah.
doing. Yes. Yeah. So the next point is that men are not taking up their spiritual role. Well, we shared on that. Men are not taking up their spiritual role. I think a man is supposed to step up and be a father, be a guide. You know, there's a reason. I think there's a reason why, from the perspective of a man and a woman, there's a reason why a man is built the way in which he's built, because there are things that my wife would say to the children and she might have to say two times, and I say it once. And as I've always said on this program, I think I threaten the children um, of beating more than any beating they get, and
They don't get no beating.
so
They
so
don't get no beating in the first
I think
place.
maybe sometimes they might think, okay, well, mommy bluffing, and they said, daddy might deliver a few. So they don't. But it's very important, very important for a man to function in his designed role.
Milton, I think you have to type your what you need to say. We don't have a call in at the moment, so you just have to do your best to type what you want to say.
Oh, Milton want to call in.
Yes.
Milton, we're working on that, Milton. No worry.
Yeah, because I mean, as we even when we talk about a godly man, we're talking about a man who fears God and keep His commandments. So when we are in the position as a man, when a man is in the position that he is supposed to be, when he is in that stance as a God-fearing man, a man who, goes to God for his family. In a home, you're supposed to have a man that not only you can come to them for natural things, or you can say, what do you think about this? Even for godly advice, he is supposed to be there to help in that way as well, if he's standing in the rightful place that he's supposed to be.
Yeah, Melanie, I think you caught us midway. If you check in our initial opening, we did not mention that the men's role are higher than a woman. We were talking more about them functioning together and being co-equal. So if you check in our opening, that's our opening. That was our opening stance. Why is this place so hot? The AC not kicking in. Yes. So let's look at how the Bible view the role of a man.
Hmm. Yeah. The Bible, in Ephesians 5:16, it says, this is the role of a leader. It says they work while it is day because they know that night comes when no man can work. And this is just a scripture that talks about, not being lazy, being alert, being knowing, just like we had spoken of a scripture the other morning when we talk about go to the ant thou sluggard.
Mm-hmm.
Consider her ways and be wise because she gathers her food and so on. It's just being proactive and being in that state where, listen, I want to make sure that my family is being taken care of. I want to make sure that the people around me are being taken care of. So I am doing what I need to do when I need to do it.
Mm.
So the Bible looks for a man or a leader to be show that kind of leadership where I am not lazy, I am stepping up and I'm making sure that my family and my surrounding are taken care of.
I think Melanie, not Melanie, Beverly just made a point that most times when information like this is being shared, it's mostly ladies listening. So Beverly, this is when the ladies relaying back the information comes into play. As I always say, um, Roxanne can tell me a 2 hour movie in 2 days, and I will tell her the same 2 hour movie in 2 minutes. So you need to share with your spouse this the same information. Yeah, a man should be as Roxanne says, spiritual leader. He should be righteous. Um, he should be loving. He should love his wife. He should love his family, and he should love others. That's the function I think a man should function in. Loving his wife, love his family, and love others.
Steadfast. He should also be steadfast in what he's doing. What he says is what he does, and make sure that he is committed to what he's doing. So even as you love your wife, even as you love your family, loving means that, hey, I am here. I'm not going anywhere. No matter what else is there out there, I am here and I am remaining here. So
Mm.
God is looking for men also to be steadfast, unmovable in the faith, in your relationship, in everything that is positive and uplifting. We are calling on the men to be steadfast because that is what your role is as well.
All right, I'll have to step out for 1 minute. I think I'm like somebody turn on a pipe. I have to check the AC, make sure that we're working. So Roxanne, continue, and I will step back in
Yes,
momentarily.
so even as we talk about a man being loving is leading lovingly. And as we talk about leadership, we're not talking about control. We're not talking about domineering and talking down. Because if we leave from one extreme and go to the next extreme, both extremes are out of order. We have to come to a place where we understand that we are functioning together, because that is exactly how God structured it to be, that we are helping each other. Because if God says, he who finds a wife findeth a good thing, it doesn't mean it cannot mean that the wife is there to be belittled. And if you as a woman, or if we as women look at our role as being belittled in front of me, as being belittled, then then we that is how our thought process would be. But that is not what it ought to be. That is not how it was designed to be. So we want everybody to function in their sphere, like in how you are supposed to be living, how you're supposed to be functioning. Take on what you are supposed to be taking on and function in that, so that you are a man who is, as we said, God fearing, loving, and steadfast, not moving easily for anything.
Yeah, protect is also another key element that I mentioned a bit earlier. A man being a protector. If you're not there, then you can protect. I have had uh, different incidents in which you go out with your family, and just the presence of a man within the family structure tell someone, even if he thinks, okay, well, I can say something to either the wife or the children. Um, Somebody knows, well, look, once there's a man present, there's
Mhm.
some kind of strength, and we often talk about. I've heard situations with a woman pulling up at a mechanic shop, or a woman pulling up at somewhere, and them being told all kind of things is happening to the car. And when a man is present, you hear something
Story
different. The
change.
story changes, because for somewhere along the line, I think persons look upon a woman and said, okay, well, there is some kind of weakness there. And when a man is present, there's a different. It's not, it's not something that should be,
Mhm.
because even, for example, like, a man outside is preying on a woman based on the fact that he sees that she's vulnerable.
Mhm. But then it goes back to what we're saying. That particular man that is doing that is not functioning how he's supposed to function.
Exactly.
Because if he was a loving person, and if he was God fearing, and understand that, listen, this is, a woman is precious, a woman is just as, I am,
Mm-hmm.
he would not be doing that. But that
Mm.
is just one of the pitfalls of society,
Mm.
in which some men think that women are weak. Men are called to be gentle, even though not soft, but gentle, in a way that when a woman approaches you, you're not brash, you're not talking down, you're not letting them feel like I am below you. You operate in a loving and gentle manner. I don't know if you want to read what Milton is saying there.
When you finish, I'm reading through in the meantime, and then I'll throw it up and then probably comment back on it.
Yeah. So, operating in a gentle manner as a man, not because you are a man means that you must be rough and brash. Be gentle, be loving, and everything, as we're saying tonight, comes back to being somebody that women can look up to, your children can look up to, and say, listen, this man is respectable. This man is who I want to be as a young man.
Mm. Uh, um, I let me just read through for those of you who are listening by radio. We are functioning within the radio and also on Facebook. And let me just read quickly what Milton said. Milton said, "What I wanted to say in a nutshell is that society has put it in a way where a woman doesn't need a man, and that should not be so. Even in movies, we see where the woman is being portrayed as a man. Take, for example, the movie Woman King. As much as I enjoyed it, my only problem was the name. There's no way a woman can be a king. However, they are they have they
There
have
we have
made
a
a
whole
whole
movie.
they have made a whole movie trying to say something different. Men has to step up and be men and stop allowing society to dictate their values. Milton, I take on board the point, and one of the things that I must highlight, and we're not functioning in a society whereby, let me make sure I put this in the right way. We're not functioning today in a society whereby what we're seeing is new to us, because there are numerous situations in the Bible whereby a man did not step up and God had to use a woman. There are situations in biblical perspective whereby the man was designed as king and the woman was the one that was running the kingdom in Jezebel and Ahab. In the case of Deborah, Deborah is the one that had to step up and step into the role when a man did not come to the fore. And I too would have a problem calling a woman a king. King is designed for man. It's not something. But I think I have not seen the movie, but from the background and from what I've heard about the movie, it was like a story of true events. I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the concept is basically um, um, showing women as warriors. I heard someone said something a while back when they said they never grew up with a father, and the mother is the only father that they know. Um, it's it's the reality of some of the situations that we've been faced with. Our point is, and our point will continue to be, and as much as we're saying, okay, well, a man needs to step up and be in the role, function in the role that he is supposed to be. Don't let the man's role be diminished. And likewise, as we said at the start of the program, um, the woman's role was never meant to be diminished. A woman was never meant to be walking behind her husband and saying yes sir, yes sir, yes sir to everything that he says. A woman is a co-equal, and a woman is supposed to function in that space. But having said that, again, we're going to make the point and we're going to highlight a woman and a man's role should not, well, a man's role should not supersede and him be the master and the woman the servant, or vice versa.
Yeah. Because just like James said, we mentioned in the beginning, there's a difference between being a leader and being a dictator or being controlling. So there's no doubt about it. A man is the leader.
Mm.
That is how God ordained it to be.
Mhm.
But how are you leading and what does that look like? That looks like seeking the face of God for your family, being there for your family needing help, being, as we say, a righteous leader, being loving, being steadfast, being gentle, being that protector that God has called you to be. And like James said, there is just something about a man that there is a protector in him. No matter what we fight, no matter what society wants to put out, there is something that is a protector in a man. And a lot of times we talk about it and in a joking way, where we say, listen, you're in the house with your family and something's outside, you're knocking your husband like, go and see what's making that sound. As much as we want to, because what it is, I think the problem is with society is when a woman is trying to be a man. Because you're saying, oh, don't be domineering and don't be this and don't be that. But then you're trying to be that person. You're trying to replace by saying, I can be that too. Nobody's supposed to be that. You be a woman and he and the man be the man.
Mhm. Where you're provider,
Hmm.
provider. Um, the Bible talks about if a man cannot take care of his family, is worse than an infidel, worse than an unbeliever. Man is a natural provider. One of one of the jokes that we have at home is that every time I leave to go and buy food, I would always come back with extra food. And Roxanne would ask, why you buy so much food? Because I'm always thinking like, okay, well, suppose we need this, suppose we need that, suppose we need that. If the kids get up and they need to get a snack, then I will just buy all these things. I will just go in and say, I'm going to take one of that, take one of that, and I leave just to buy a couple of things.
Mm.
It's my role functioning as a provider. I want to make sure that I provide for my children, and I like I pain sometimes when we have a situation whereby a father is not allowed to function as a father in terms of providing for his children, or even if he has to do things like go through the courts and that kind of thing. I mean, it's a society we live in. It's situations that happen, but I really pain when I see there's that strain between a father and a child, and him not being able to function in the way he wants to function and provide for that child.
Hmm. Another role of the father or man, I should say, is the procreator.
Mm-hmm.
And even as we spoke tonight about a woman functioning on her own and saying, I don't need a man, that egg cannot fertilize without something being
From
put
the
from a
man.
man.
Yeah.
It has to function that way because that is how it is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we still need each other. Whether there may not be a physical man standing there, but there is something there that came from a man that is supposed to fuse with that egg to procreate.
Yep.
So we still need each other no matter how we put it. This is necessary for the growth of the family. The man's role, in terms of all those things that we listed before, is necessary for the growth of the family. There's nothing that looks better than a man functioning in the role he's supposed to function, being that wisdom from God, being that leader, that provider, that he's supposed to be protector of his family against all odds, and seeing how that plays out in the family, how it's healthy, how it's running, how it's supposed to run, because he's stepping into that function. So it's necessary for the growth of the family as well.
Yes, it's also necessary for keeping the family together. There's I often see, like, if I go out and someone sees me and they have not seen me in a while, the first thing they ask me, "How is the family? How is your wife? How are the children?" And I think a lot of times persons ask these questions because they wish well, they want to make sure that everything is still good.
Mm.
On other occasions, somebody might just be asking because they're curious, or might tell themselves, okay, well, I want to see finally y'all break up, and so on and so on and so on and so forth.
Or nosy.
But or nosy, but but it is really necessary, to make sure that the family is kept together. And I would say even more so, the onus is on the man to ensure that the family is kept together.
Mm.
I know that at times, I in our counseling sessions, you hear everything. And one of the things that we always say in this program, I rarely, there are occasions when you, but I rarely go into a counseling session and somebody put up their hand and say, "It's me, I'm wrong."
Mm.
It's always, "It's him, it's her."
Tell them.
Tell them, so like, it's necessary.
Mm.
These things are necessary to keep the family together.
Financial stability.
Mm.
No matter how one party is working and have a good job, there's always better when it's two. So the man's role is necessary in that as well, to provide that income, that extra income for the family.
Mm.
In the past, it was more evident because, as we mentioned, the men were more of the
Breadwinner,
breadwinner,
so to
going
speak.
out to
Yeah.
work and so on. But now we have situations where both parties are going out to work, and it makes it even better for the family that two income is coming into the household. So you're working together, and a man's responsibility, as I said, you can't provide if you're not working.
Hmm.
So being there, being a provider, and being that financial, helping to be that financial stability for the family is also a part of your role.
Yeah, and we spoke about it a bit earlier. It's necessary to pass down to the next generation. It's necessary to pass down to those who will emulate you, to pass down to your sons. I want to make sure I pass the lessons that I have learned onto my children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that growing up, um, my dad was as much involved um, in our raising as I'm involved in my sons. And I've always mentioned in this program, my dad would get 100% for raising us based on the fact that he did all that he know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I have learned more and I am doing what my dad did, then I would be getting a failing grade. I have to use all that I have and function with all that I have. Similarly, I have to make sure that I pass on more. So I want to make sure that, and that is one of the things that I remembered, that I had an interview at church with some young girls, and I remember one young girl saying, "I want to make sure that I am a better version of my mom. I want to make sure that my sons are a better version of me. I don't want them to be like me.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be better than me. So I want them to be raised in the fear and admonition of God. I want them to be raised as good husbands. I want them to function as good brothers, as good sons. So I want them, as I've always said, I want to make sure that they function in whatever capacity they're in, to function and be the best that they could be in
The
that
best that they
capacity.
can be. And as men, we want to say tonight too, is not just for you to criticize what society is doing to you or how society is making men look and diminishing men. You as a man have to take stock of yourself. You have to do that inward check and ask yourself, what am I doing to diminish me? What am I doing to make myself put myself in that position as well? Because if as a man is not stepping up, then you are part to blame for the position that men are in as well.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you're not part of that statistic. And again, Roxanne said it, and I want to look at the flip side of it. And I want to also admonish the women, do not diminish the role of your husband, do not diminish the role of the man. When it's a situation whereby the man just has a child, do not diminish his role, because his relationship with you is not necessarily a relationship with his child. Let him function in his role that he is designed to function in. And don't fight the battle between yourself and him and include your child in it. And for example, and for those of you who are married, and for those of you who think to yourself, well, look, my husband is not stepping up to the role that he needs to step up to. There are things that you can do. And as we mentioned earlier, the wife is supposed to be the helper for the husband.
Mm.
And it's a situation like he might not be best in balancing the books and doing finances. That does not say, oh, you're the man and you're supposed to be doing this. No, you might be a better
Mm-hmm.
financial person than him. And it's up to him also to get to the point whereby he acknowledges that, because you might go out and sometimes, a lot of times we function like based on what somebody tell us. Oh, you make the woman controlling your money and so on, and you come home and you're bigging up and ratting up and so on.
And you
And
know you can't do it.
yeah, the woman is a better accountant than you. Make the woman do the books, man. It doesn't take anything off of you.
Mm.
Much of things that I don't know, and I come to my wife, and it does not diminish my role as a husband, because I said, well, I come to my wife. If I am out, because we are we are functioning in this space for the last 18 years. And if you come to me and you ask me something, and I say to you, I'm gonna talk to my wife and get back to me. Don't come at me like, oh, you're a man. You're supposed to.
Mm.
No. I am a co-equal. I have a relationship with this woman for 18 years. And I have to make sure that she's at the right place whereby any decision that I make that is going to affect us, she has just as much say and she has input in it. So I am not one of those that you can catch with, oh, you make rocks and everything, yeah, rocks under the boss.
Mm.
I mean, you understand what I mean?
I wanted to point out a point that Delvin made because it's so true. Because like he's saying, the human race is and always has been on the attack, spiritual war. The attack starts from birth to school, TV, media. Because as we said, the society makes it seem as if a man being the head or a man being the leader is a bad thing.
Mm,
It's like a domineering, talk down, belittle, and we see it in society. But that is not, again, how it's supposed to be.
mhm,
Because if society is functioning in, I guess, how it is supposed to function, because it's always it's something to diminish what God has, or to overturn and to make it into something else. So if society is saying a man is, don't bother with them, no man is supposed to control you, that is not what a leader, a man being a leader is all about. So that is the wrong concept that they have of what a man being a leader is supposed to be.
mm. I want to say, before we go, and Lise made a good point, and at this point, I want to say, um, a happy birthday to Lise. Lise is my buddy. I don't like to use the word old because I'm older than Lise. Lise is my buddy
Happy
from
birthday,
way back.
Lise.
So happy birthday, Lise. I hope you have a good day. As I tell you, drink a
Mm.
ginger ale on me, and you promise me you're gonna drink two. So drink two ginger ale. And yesterday also was Abier's birthday. Abier is the chairman or the CEO of the Eagle Something Association. She is the one that look for the money before it comes. So Milton, you can
Happy
correct me.
belated, Abia. I hope Milton treated you
No,
on your birthday.
you don't have to hope. You don't have to
I
hope.
want him to say
No,
something.
Milton just pull out all this stuff. You don't have to hope on that. Yes. So that's our little wrap up for today, and that I think that as Roxanne mentioned earlier, and based on the society we live in, I cannot point to anything, and we cannot point to anything to say, okay, well, this is wrong and this was wrong and this, because we lived in a society at one point whereby um, we understand our grandmothers, our mothers were the one that stayed home and kept house and so on. And I think to an extent, you had the same kind of mindset being transferred down to person. So even when women start to get out in the professional field, you still had a man trying to make sure, trying to say, okay, well, you need to do this and you need to do
Mhm.
that. And I think from a woman's point of view, when a woman tells herself, well, I'm bringing in more money in this house, so I really need you for it,
Mm.
and that is where the whole kick up start to come. But in relationships, a man and a woman can function as
Together,
co-equals, can function together, and and
with Hill still being the leader.
that's the
Yep.
important point.
Hmm.
And it's not a, it's not a situation whereby nobody's role is diminished.
Mm.
It's not a situation where nobody's role is diminished. When you think of um, work atmosphere, and when you think of a football field, and a work atmosphere is that I may go on the job and I
Mm.
may have 15 persons on the job, and I would take advice from each one of the 15 persons. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that does the implementation.
Hmm.
So nobody leaves and nobody says, "Well, look, I didn't get anything to do. I didn't have a role to play."
Hmm.
So
And imagine the team without a leader. Chaos.
Leaderless,
Yes.
riderless.
Yes. So it's leadership, not controlling.
That's it.
That is what it's all about.
That's it. It's leading. When you think of boss and when you think of leader, it's two different roles.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's
Thank
all we have for you.
you. Thank you for joining us.
And y'all excuse me for being a bit late.
It's so hard to shut off the video.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hot. Yes, Delvin, thank
Thank
you
you,
for connecting
Delvin.
with
Good
us.
night.
Thanks, Louisa, Lise. I saw Shane a bit earlier and Cheryl
And
and
Simone.
Elkie. Elkie was gone sleep and Melanie and all
Others
those
we
who
miss.
Jermaine. I saw Jermaine earlier and my cousin Irene and Beverly and
Viola.
Viola. Eli must be gone to sleep by now. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
God bless you.
Bye.
Talk with you all next week. She said she's still here.